Hello, our friends, Evolutionary Energy Arts family.
Hello there, welcome back.
Liberté.
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 Yes, but it can work.
Yes,
It can work. It can work.
Absolutely. Look at what we got going on here.
Okay, so we're going to kind of start from something positive, and let's take a look over here. We see France, or apparently positive.
Yeah.
France says it's willing to discuss autonomy for Guadeloupe. France is willing to discuss autonomy for the French Caribbean territory of Guadeloupe if it's in the interests of the people who live there. Well, everything should be in the interest of the people that live wherever they are living.
You would think so, but these are for a limited group of people deciding for a larger group of people.
Yes, and so Guadeloupe and the nearby island of Martinique, also a French island, has seen several days of, well, let's say, inconformity, just saying no, however you want to say it.
Yes.
If you break that word right there, PROTESTS, it's, well, pro is for, and then, what's the definition of a test?
It's a measure of something that we have done.
Yeah, so you're talking about for measuring. There's a lot of measuring that needs to be done with the systems that we see in place, and people are waking up to that fact every day, en masse right now.
And not exactly measuring by those that made the system either.
Yes. Because what do you need? You need people that are non-biased. And you need the will. It should be the will of those that are, living in a certain place to live a certain way according to their wishes. That's just kind of like basic rights, no?
I mean, so.
you would think so.
In their world, it's okay for the wolf to guard the chicken coop.
The government's ready to talk about this. Well, thank you.
Nice.
Thank you so much.
Oh my gosh.
Wow.
Never would have thought.
That's so big of you. That's so big of you. And it's like these islands. I haven't been a world traveler, but this is an area that I've been drawn to. And if we weren't talking about the potential for major Earth changes, and I was able to, I would live on a Caribbean island without a doubt. It's gorgeous, such natural beauty, wonderful weather. Of course, we have the hurricanes, but you know what? We didn't have a lot of hurricanes this year, did we? And if it keeps getting colder, all that should change. So, if we're looking at the grand solar minimum, and we're looking at the potential for another mini ice age to set in, it'll definitely influence and change the weather patterns. But then, of course, we got all the artificial flavoring in this world, which really jumbles everything up into a absolute crapshoot of trying to figure out, what's really the bigger plan, so to speak. And so we see big 3 U.S. automakers are giving up on the dates for men.
Oh, again, that's so big of them. But it should have never been in the first place. But we'll take it. Whatever. We'll take it.
Well, again, this goes to what we started out with. Liberté.
Yes.
Liberté. And, now we're going to jump down another rabbit hole just because we got to just touch on it. And you see here, this is a top physician. This is Frank Ulrich Montgomery, who is the chairman of the Global Physician Society, the World Medical Association. Whenever I see 3 letters in caps like that, it tends to make me a little bit concerned, just because these authorities that do impose their will on the libertés of the people of the globe, it always feels very foreboding when they make certain statements. And you can read this statement talking about a new plague upon the land variant and using the E word that we were talking about yesterday, but not stating it because we don't want to state it. And
no, we're not allowed to state it.
Well, we don't want to,
call it for what it is.
Absolutely. But, there have been a lot of people that have received visions of something exactly along the lines of what this article is now saying. And let us hope that is not the case. Let us hope that these artificial gray skies will cease. Hey, let's save some money. Let's start funding these programs, okay? That would really be a nice thing, wouldn't it?
Well, I just don't think it's fair that this money automatically comes out of your check and it goes all to them. I wish there was a way we could itemize and decide for ourselves where that stuff goes. But you'd have to cut out the middleman for that.
Wouldn't it be, you guys know the biblical term Jubilee? There's a biblical term Jubilee, and that's kind of like a time of rest and new beginnings, so to speak. Wouldn't it be wonderful if, it was like a clean slate, a total clean slate? Every single politician has to be moved out of office, and let's start to transition to something better. But anyone that's been in office, let's just, what if we said that they couldn't go back into office? Just forbidden, because they've already been part of this system as we move towards something new. Now, we certainly don't want to, PCC, put it up to a mirror, president for life, like we see over there in the fine dining ware country. Again, what we want is less structure. Less structure is good. Everything has got to break down. It's got to break down to its smallest common denominator. Power needs to go back away from everything, from the centrality, into the communities themselves. Where hey, I live in the little town of Fairfield, right? I don't like what's going on, in Fairfield. I like what's going on over there in Greenville. Those guys, I think more like they do. I have the same values that they do. So, hey, we're going to try to put the house for sale, honey, and we're going to look to move to Greenville. It's only 20 miles away, about the same weather and everything. It's just, they do things a little differently over there. Okay, so, you go and do that. It's a case where if we have one big global system, then you got nowhere to go. And that's obviously the thing that everybody is really afraid of, or should be afraid of. Because if you disagree, where are you going to go? Well, we don't have Elon's rockets at our disposal. We can't just say, I'm going to Mars, honey. Let's pack our bags. We're going to Mars. Mm-hmm. And then you would find out the same system's in place over there, by the way.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
You're not going to escape that system just even by getting off of Earth,
well,
unfortunately.
Especially because that's sort of kind of where it came from.
Exactly. That system was brought here and was brought here from Nibiru.
Yeah, so you can't fix the system by using the same system to fix it with.
No. And that's, not to get too off topic, because we're going to mostly focus on the Earth changes here and some hidden history. But again, it's bringing things to light with people that haven't been exposed to certain facts, figures, thoughts, ideas, new systems, new potentials, new possibilities. One of our family members was saying, do you think you're doing a disservice by bringing up the news? But the guides, I've reiterated to them, I would just love to delve into nothing but the spiritual side of things. Honestly, if I was to follow my heart, it would be more towards that, the hidden history, all the more esoteric stuff, as well as things that are just fun and happy, like mantras and kirtans and music and things like that. But they are, very, very adamant. And no, you're here to do primarily is wake people up to what's going on behind the scenes when they look at the news. And then you show them that perspective that, well, there is a control system in place. This is why this is coming down like this. And then looking at the spiritual side of things in the bigger picture, tying in the hidden history and all the things that unfortunately are getting just erased. And, they were saying this morning again, you got to not just do the videos. You're going to have to put things in writing. I was just looking for some articles that were there like 3 months ago. They're not there now on certain hidden history aspects. They're gone. And the links are dead, and you can't find them anywhere. And this is happening more and more often.
Mm-hmm. It is. It's really unfortunate. So it's very important to have an understanding of what's going on, because you can't wake up unless you know what you're going to wake up to. I mean, you have to look at things through a different lens. And that's what we do. We take off the old lens, put on a new lens, and say, look at it through this, because that's what evolution is about.
Whatever the percentage of people that are really truly awake, because there's different levels of getting awake, and certain parts of it are harder to shed than others. Often our religious affinity could be one of the toughest ones, but for some people it might be that left-right divide, getting over that, and recognizing that the puppet strings extend into both sides. Any way you look at it, there's not enough people that are fully awake right now to affect complete positive change. So we got to keep reaching out to those that are just starting to have question marks in their mind about, this is starting to hit me as a little bit suspicious. Something feels funny here. And then when you could look at the historical aspect of it and see, about the 3 world wars that were predicted in 1871, and, look and say, well, who really did bring Israel back into existence? Was it God, creator of the multiverse, source of all things? Or was it actually somebody of the family lineage that begins with ROTH S child? Yes, that's exactly. And who are they? Well, they're one of these families that have lineage that go back to a certain group, IgI, right? That tie into Mars, which sounds bizarre, but look at what we see in the Sumerian legends, and understand how, really what we have here when we're talking about the Roman Empire with the eagle, and we look to, well, Russia has the double-headed eagle, and the United States has the eagle, and I see there's one person that only posts the same message every time, and it's make Babylon desolate again. And we go back and you start to wonder, why is scripture the way it is? Because it's script for us. It's a script to follow. And we did make the comment yesterday too, talking about Nostradamus and how he's not reincarnated yet. He's going to come back at about the same approximate same time in the next Kali Yuga. And again, to lay down those prophecies. And you could view it in multiple ways. His spirit does want to do good, but he is also tied in with the elites and the powers, the true powers that be at this particular time on the planet. And so, he's in that loop of giving these prophecies, which you could look at as warnings to avoid, or you could look at it as something that's laying the groundwork to fulfill it, since we do all have a piece in manifesting this collective reality. And so we see extreme winds hit parts of UK, pushing Arctic air towards Europe. And, extreme weathers has just gotten more and more common. It's just insane. I remember when we first started looking at these massive floods and cars getting washed away, and we were like, holy cow, look at that. And now it's like, oh yeah, there's just another main street 5 feet deep in water. You get kind of used to it after a while, and that's a sad thing.
Right. Well, they've made it we're like numb to it. I forget the exact word I'm looking for, but they've made us numb to it. So like we just look at it and it's like ho hum, and they do that with all kinds of different things. They just desensitized. They've desensitized us to the point where it's I feel it's unhealthy. So that's something, as long as you're kind of checking yourself and you're checking with yourself in your soul and your heart and putting out the correct emotions, then they can't get away with that.
Talking about prophecy. So when we're talking here, there's a song that's going through my head. I wonder how many of you know it. I'm sure many of you do. Pink Floyd, were they prophesizing? Comfortably numb? Comfortably numb? It's just a little, you know what? There'll be no more right? I mean, think about it. Think about it. Comfortably numb. 143,000 people without power here. Frigid Arctic air coming towards Europe and bringing snow to Spain. And some of our family members over in New Mexico, up in Taos, were saying, where's all the snow? There's no snow yet. This is kind of weird. Weather patterns always changing. And again, all it is just a matter of turning up the frequency, and you could change things. You could just simply lay down a grid work pattern and change things. Canberra's rainiest November on record. And here you see almost 6 inches of rain so far this month. It's 2.5 times more than the city's average November rain. Speaking of another song there, November Rain, right?
November rain, November rain.
Yes. Cindy loves that one.
Indeed.
Severe flood hits Malta during one of the country's worst storms ever. And this is what we're talking about, those cars getting washed away. We're watching cars get washed away off into the Mediterranean. It's just crazy. And again, all this also is, it could be related to some musical instruments that might be being played up in Alaska as well as other locations across the globe. Severe hailstorm. This is in South Africa. South Africa is in the news for other reasons. A new variant, the plague upon the land. And all I'm seeing is headlines saying, the Greek god Pan. Mm-hmm. Well, that word, that's the root. The root of which comes from the Greek god Pan. Panic. Mm-hmm. And again, it's all about control again. Division. Fear. Fear. Division. And
people are looking for an answer, and lo and behold, the control system is always there with an answer.
Well, yes. Again, that's just a matter of planning. Look, they are united. We can't have this. They're actually working together. They're not at war. Go back to that Tower of Babel. Come on, let us. I still, the people that try to say, yeah, that's God, Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. Mm-mm. They're all coming down to spread, chaos. No, they're not. If we really feel the teachings of Yeshua, which we're going to be doing another video on teachings of Yeshua, what he really wants to get across, has nothing to do with spreading fear, with spreading panic, with spreading division. Exactly the opposite. Nordic power prices surge on sub-zero temps, low winds, danger to life warning issued in Scotland. There was another article that came out about how wind power is too cheap, so nobody's going to be investing in it. What? This world is about profit and greed. And when if you view money as an potential energy exchange, and you have handfuls of people hoarding enough energy to lift the entire world out of a dark age, you got to say there's something wrong with the system.
There's something definitely wrong with the system.
Yes. Going to another all-time great classic movie, The Water Boy.
Yes.
There's something wrong with the medulla oblongatas of the leadership of this planet.
Big time. Big time. I hope we're getting that across.
It's almost like these guys are the water boy. You remember that, where the guy was trying to get the Adam Sandler character really riled up, so he kept saying, water sucks, water sucks. Well, the leadership of the earth, the way they treat the earth, it's almost like they're saying, our mother sucks. Mm-hmm. It's almost like there's a contempt for the very planet that they are living on.
A disdain, something, because I feel that because that is the core energy of the earth, that is like the beating heart of every being on the planet. They must control that and crush it and shrivel it up like that.
Exactly. If we're ever going to have real true liberté, then, I think we really got to just, have a little recommendation for the elite of this world, that they should get Mr. Musk to build a nice big fleet, and then they could all go back to Mars.
We're fine with it.
And that planet's already semi-ruined, and on life support, and leave this one alone.
Yeah, just back away from the beautiful Gaia.
Yes, because the problem is obviously a top-down problem. This one missed, most people missed what's going on here with this. The largest deep ocean volcanic eruption in the past century was almost missed by everybody on Earth. And, again, this article goes to say that 70% of volcanic eruptions happen under the oceans because, well, the oceans cover 70% of the Earth. So pretty, logical there. But it talks about how there was such a massive eruption that was under the ocean that we really missed. And you had a peculiar large mass floating on the ocean hundreds of kilometers off the north coast of New Zealand. And there was a lady that saw this as they were flying by in their plane. A raft of floating rocks spewed from an underwater volcano produced the largest eruption of its kind ever recorded. We know it was a large-scale eruption, approximately equivalent to the biggest eruption we've seen on land in the 20th century. And, this gets me thinking because of the location, the times that we are in. As you see the plume there in the raft, we are going to see massive changes, and massive changes will come by naturally, as we've said. Now, if we were more like the animals that are on the planet, which we have been like that in the past, we have been as in tune. When we say we mean, the humanoid beings on this planet, because there's been many different humanoid beings on this planet. The beings that are more indigenous to this planet, and we say more, maybe saying more because, have been here for generations. Ultimately, again, life abounds everywhere, and we are most definitely mutts. Mm-hmm. We have so many different lineages in us from so many different places that it would probably boggle the mind to know our true lineage, and it would also make a lot of things look so silly about anything, that we're seeing on the planet when it comes to any sort of division caused by, color, race, and et cetera,
division because on its own creates a whole lot of its own chaos, and I think that's the whole point, just to make sure that we're divided so we can't come together and help each other out.
So back in 2012, this raft of pumice, which is a type of very light air-filled volcanic rock, which, being in the desert, we saw it all over the place. Mm-hmm. We made little borders with pumice. Covered some 400 square kilometers, 154 square miles of the Southwest Pacific Ocean. Months later, satellites recorded it dispersing over an area twice the size of New Zealand itself. And under the surface, the sheer scale of the rocky aftermath took scientists aback when they inspected the site in 2015 at depths as low as 4,000 feet. They thought that they were having malfunctions when they saw how much material was deposited. And again, this is an area it's fascinating because, it gets us thinking about the past. What exactly did the Earth look like in the time of Atlantis, Lemuria, Mute? What did it really, really look like then? And when you see people talking about the Earth changes and what's going to look like in the future, how much are they remembering the past? As this is Gordon Michael Scallion's map, as you see, little chunks, well, big-ass chunks, I should say, excuse the swearing, of Atlantis there, coming back off the coast to the east coast of the United States and down by the Bahamas. And then, Lemuria there, rising again off the coast of Northern California, Oregon, and Washington. And we do know that what we see of New Zealand now is just a tiny portion of what was Zealandia. At one time, again, when you get to the Ice Age and so much water is locked up at the poles, the ocean levels drop drastically. Mm-hmm. So, again, it's the timing on all these things. And the guides do say that ultimately we're trending colder. It's going to continue to get colder. They don't think it's going to be, boom, immediately Ice Age. They're not saying that. But we are going to continue to trend colder over time. You're going to have the wild swings, but the tendency is going to be towards a colder Earth. And, that actually does, bode for a little bit tougher time as far as the farming goes, as certain zones are going to go out of being productive. But gladly, Mother Earth is going to take care of this for us because, there's going to be new lands rising that will be very fertile, extremely fertile. Now, we may have to get there. Again, we're moving forward into other generations to come. So we are at like a time of a bridge time. We're right here. We're going from the end of one age and into a newer age that's coming. And, it could say, New Age, New Age, New Age, and that's going to terrify a lot of people out there. Oh, somebody went running and screaming right down the street now.
Right? Yeah, they do that a lot. So you got to watch out for that New Age stuff. But really, it's old age stuff. It's stuff that's been around for a very long time, and it's stuff that's proven to work. And they've just really taken it and they've corrupted it in such a way where it scares people. And that's what they do. They take really good things and they turn them around and they turn them inside out and they make them bad and they make people afraid of it. And that's the world in which we live.
Yes, yes. Yeah, so, every now and then we'll get somebody new to the channel. They come in because they see the news, and then they'll say something like, oh, you're just a bunch of pagans, or you're a New Ager. But what they're really saying is, I'm indoctrinated in the system, and I don't understand what you're talking about.
Right, exactly.
But here we see the outline of Zealandia. So, when I looked at that, I started thinking right off the bat, this is part of the new changes that are coming in. And this is what I was looking for. This article popped up, The Origins of the Ancient Etruscans. They don't speak an Indo-European language, and there's that whole Aryan invasion thought of which, we really don't have all the pieces. A lot of people are doing great research. Robert Seffer, Atlantean Gardens, very enjoyable videos he puts out and thought-provoking as well, talking about, what's going on now. He really thinks that a lot of these, what we would have called the Aryan invasions and these different migrations of certain peoples is related to Atlantis and Atlantean culture. And is also related to Cro-Magnon man. And then that gets us thinking about Denisovans and Neanderthal and all these other ones that were out there. That, the only remnants of them is in some people's genes now because they're gone. But the thing I was looking for, because the Etruscans have legends. They remember a time when the moon wasn't there. And, they are an ancient people. And by the way, the Etruscan people here, they basically inhabit the area north of Rome. And, had their own way and have gotten assimilated into, Italian culture now, as everybody kind of gets assimilated over time into, it's a merging of cultures. But they're a fascinating people. And so, here you have another article. It's looking into the origin of the Etruscans because they're again, not of an Indo-European language group, which means they came from somewhere else. So we have DNA studies that are now shedding light on things. And some of these areas, again, when we had the Younger Dryas events and the catastrophes then, they did get submerged. There is evidence. If you look to the Carolina Bays, there's all these very, very round, now bodies of water because they've been filled in with water. But these are impact sites all throughout the east coast of the U.S., even over towards heading towards the west. Something big hit Greenland. And, of course, then we think of the movie Greenland, right, with the incoming asteroids and stuff. And, it caused such disaster, and it did cause a lot of floods. So, again, many have talked about, Noah's flood, and then, of course, the Sumerian flood story is 1,200 to 2,000 years older, but there's flood stories all over the world relating to these cataclysms. And so it's just fascinating to see all this because history is so hidden.
Very much hidden, and they do that on purpose. And if you want to go back and prove it to yourself, go back and look at the history books. It keeps getting rewritten, and the science books keep getting rewritten. And you would think that they would just figure something out by now and stop doing that, but they don't. They just keep rewriting it because as long as people buy into it, they're going to just keep doing it. So it's like the same story, and as long as the majority buys into it, that's what we're going to get.
Well, that goes back to that George Orwell's 1984. There was a whole bunch of people. What was their job? Their entire job was basically rewriting history, rewriting the news, constantly, recycling. They would take somebody's picture off of somebody that recently they executed, and they would paste it onto somebody else's story of a war hero or something else and just change history, boom, like that. constant. It was the office of propaganda.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what goes on the biggest scale on this planet. And here we see a 14,000-year-old settlement site discovered for the first time on Turkey's west coast. And Turkey is Anatolia. That's just a fascinating region. Again, this is an area where people, when you're talking Anatolia, for instance, it has enough housing in caves underground for potentially hundreds of thousands of people. And when they got in them, they sealed them from the inside, like they were afraid of somebody coming upon them and exterminating them or something. Was it another day of the Lord, so to speak, when we go looking into what does the day of the Lord really mean? As I shared when I was a teenager, I think I was about 19, and I was doing my Bible studies 2-3 times a week. And I had tons of questions, which there was never a good answer. It was just generally, yeah, it's just that's just a mystery. God knows better than we do. Don't question it. It's just a divine mystery. And then all of a sudden the lights went on, and it was like the only way all this makes sense is if it's non-humans that we are talking about here. And bingo. Molecular analysis reveals the oldest Denisovan fossils yet, 200,000 years ago or so. And so we'll see what the DNA reveals. Again, there's humanoids that have been here, intelligent humanoids, maybe for millions and millions of years, maybe for tens or hundreds of millions of years.
And, we've gotten some stuff with channeling, too, that kind of goes along with the same storyline of where we're at today. Just a little bit different, but very much the same. So this information is really curious. It's something we're working on.
So in the quantum realm, not even time flows as you might expect. We know from quantum physics that it's the observer that affects and creates the reality, so to speak. It's all potential, which lets you know that everything you see here is truly a top-down creation. What you see is a matrix that's created from the higher realms downward to be explored. It's almost like we've made this, in some sense, kind of like a video game, so we could go and jump inside it and experience a VR, a virtual reality. Very much so. And so this study shows that the flow of time is not properly understood. And they use the equation like, when you squeeze a tube of toothpaste, and you get what you get enough, and you take that part off onto your brush, and then you let go of pressure, and it gets sucked back in.
Mm-hmm.
Time may actually also be like that.
Well, it's also like when people give out these dates when things are going to happen. I mean, unless you're really working with astrology, I don't see how dates can actually happen, because there is no time when you're out there in the ether bringing in information.
And it's constantly changing. That's why we have all this revisionist history and predictive programming. And so we could look at prophecy, and you could take it from an innocent heart point of view, which much of it might be, where people have gotten glimpses. I mean, I myself have gotten glimpses. The guides have shown me, potential timelines. Are they set in stone? Nothing's set in stone. Basically everything can be rewritten. It's not truly something that can't be avoided. There are things that the powers that be have within their control that they can trigger, more than likely, before we'd have a chance to negate them triggering that, as we'd have to be at a much higher state of awakening to avert certain things at this point in time. But again, the more people that we wake up, the quicker we could change this consensus reality.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
And so when we don't even understand how time truly flows, and if it does flow, or how it flows frontwards and backwards, that's a big thing. And then we don't even know half of what's in ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
This is a new AI technique revealing. And it's interesting, too, because we don't even see the vast majority, even under the best microscopes we have, of what's inside ourselves.
Oh, well, it's really nice that they got the AI to show us these things. You gotta wonder, whenever the AI is involved, though, is it just more of them showing us things and giving us the perception to kind of take our intelligence and put it wherever they want?
Yeah. Yeah, it's again, that AI merge is one of the ultimate goals for certain beings here. But this is fascinating too. Um, we all have been through in school learning about things like mitochondria and the nucleus and this and that. As this statement says, scientists have long realized there's more that we don't know than what we know. Okay, that's a big statement. When you go to your DR and they say definitively, this is going to happen, you might as well tell them, yeah, right.
Yeah.
Because ultimately they don't. They don't even understand consciousness at its most basic level. And we're talking about modern scientists. That's why, again, it's going within. The gnosis that's experienced by beings like the rishis, which basically are like the equivalent of the ascended masters, so to speak, where they have an understanding of how things work. Again, look to the Shiva Sutras, look to the Yoga Sutras of Patanjali. This is really, these are great insights into how everything really truly works, because it's all about consciousness. This is a playground for consciousness. It's supposed to be a playground. It's not supposed to be, one of those Halloween horror houses.
Mm-hmm.
That's basically the controllers that are in control of this. So again, that alludes to the fact that the dysfunction is top down on this planet. It's a top down dysfunctional structure and viewpoint. And when we look to that as above, so below, as within, so without, we could see that in some ways, yes, it's extremely complicated, incredibly complicated. But can we understand it? Well, yeah, perhaps we can understand it in the most basic ways, as we see that, nature uses certain patterns. And again, it's all about fractals. And this is the whole thing about the great mystery: as above, so below, as within, so without. As we've talked about, it looks like, if you look at the universe and then you look at the structure of a brain, and the 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 relay between the different neurons in the brain and the stars in the sky, we could see these patterns all replicate themselves. This is part of the programming of what we find ourselves, our consciousness, exploring.
One of my favorite pictures is, it's not on here, but a tree and its roots. They're equally down into the earth as the tree is above the earth. And I always thought that was really curious too.
Yeah, very, very much so. So we can understand things, but we're not going to get the answer from modern science. Because again, you would need something that has no agendas in order to get the truth. Because, agendas distort truth to basically verify themselves.
Mm-hmm.
So hopefully you guys found this interesting and thought-provoking. We do want to thank everybody that's part of our family over on Patreon and also on Ko-Fi. Both of those places, you can help support the channel. And we do also appreciate your support over at Medicinal Foods. Great people. And yeah, they got a lot of good info there too. So you can see this, the Decalcify Pineal Gland Protocol. And up above it, remineralize your teeth, heal cavities, natural. There's lots of good articles here, as well as great product. And there's a link on every video that you use that you get a discount, and also it supports the channel. So guys, as always, much love. God bless and namaste.
Namaste.